is using the Department of Education to
Yeah.
brainwash our children.
Yes.
What are they after? Why are they doing it?
Well, if you want to move a country from a free individualistic economy,
Which we have?
yes, or had,
Okay.
to a planned economy, you have to do it through the schools. You have to dumb down and brainwash, change the attitudes and values. You have to completely, social engineering has to go on constantly, and many teachers know what I'm talking about. And people are going to say, well, when did this start? And who on earth ever did this? Why would a plan like that be allowed to be carried out?
That's right.
Well, then you have to go back to 1934, which I will do, and we have to go to the three-pronged fork, okay? So I do think that the watershed year, although you can go back to the early part of the century when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation were deeply involved in education, and that it was decided then that Carnegie would deal with the international part and Rockefeller domestic. But then we moved on to 1934, and this was after World War I, and there were these educators were, many of them, going back and forth to Russia, very admiring of the new system in Russia, the communistic system, and they wanted to put it in here in the United States. And so the Carnegie Corporation, that had always been involved in, trying to get us into world government after the League of Nations and all in 1917, they still had this goal. And of course, world government will be communism. I mean, it's really international socialism. That's what Lenin called it. So they've always wanted this. And
the Department of Education today is going along with that?
Yes, absolutely, yes. And so in 1934, the Carnegie Corporation produced, it took 4 years, they commissioned the American Historical Association to put together a study of the social studies. And they came up with lots of volumes, but I have one little volume, Conclusions and Recommendations for the Social Studies. And basically that little one is an original book. I wish I'd brought it with me. Too bad, but I don't even dare let it out of the house. It's so important. It called for changing the United States through the schools from a free individualistic economy to a socialist, collectivized, planned economy in the New World Order.
It says that in the book?
Yes.
And that book was written when?
In 1934.
By who?
It was the Carnegie Corporation paid for it. The American Historical Association put it together. And
can people get that book in the library?
No.
No? No?
No, they can't. But I have quotes in my book, from it. But from that time on, Carnegie Corporation consistently, without any hesitation whatsoever, didn't run into any obstruction, poured its money, its tax-exempt money, which we make possible for them to have, into changing American education. They funded the, well, let's go on to the 1945. They're deeply involved. Alger Hiss was deeply involved with the Carnegie Corporation. He was a accused Soviet agent. They didn't get him on it, but they got him on libel. But most people do think that Alger Hiss was a Soviet agent. He was Carnegie. And they were very instrumental in getting the Elementary and Secondary Education Act passed, which, as I said before, changed education from knowledge, content-based, academic, to performance-based behavior. And from that time on, because that was necessary for what we're looking at now with school-to-work agenda is the planned economy is performance-based.
So they're training workers.
They're training
not thinkers, not leaders.
Exactly. So Carnegie, after that study, then we went to the world. We went into the United Nations, which of course was essential, and then at that time, you had a general, Buck Chisholm, a Canadian general psychiatrist, who was a very close friend of Alger Hiss's. And he gave a speech in 1945 to the World Health Organization, which basically recommended getting rid of the conscience.
Wow.
Yes. And he said we would do it through the schools. We would retrain the teachers to be little psychiatrists. And what happened was that the average American educator at that time was not about, in 1945, to even listen to something like that.
Right.
And so nothing happened until the watershed year, again, another watershed year, 1965, when the Elementary and Secondary Education Act passed, and we moved then from academics to behavior change. And the behavior science teacher education program was funded.
But how did Congress allow that to happen?
Well, you'll see in the book, John Ashbrook, who died, unfortunately, Congressman Ashbrook, who I dedicated the book to, he spelled it all out. He told the whole Congress exactly what it was. He said it is an international system they're looking at. They're going to change the behavior of the children. They're going to change the teachers' training. They're going to do everything. He told them everything.
And they didn't believe him?
No, they just let, well, you know what goes on.
Yes, I
It's
do.
still going on, right? So anyway, they passed that in 1965. The teachers were retrained. All of these horrible programs, right? Mm-hmm. By 1968, the money had gone into all of these programs to get rid of the conscience, basically. Drug ed, all these programs, parents, really, when you see education hanging on the end of a drug education, sex education, critical thinking education, red flag. You don't have reading education, writing education, math education, or we didn't used to. When you see education hanging on the end of something, except for driver's ed, which I think is probably pretty neutral, that means watch it. Because those programs, I've never seen one of those programs that was based on absolutes, right and wrong.
But the parents of the children today have gone through that program. So
Yes.
they've already been brainwashed. So they're not going to believe
Well,
you.
yes, they do believe me. Many of them call, and when I do radio interviews, they'll call in and say, I went through all of that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And of course, the teachers know. And many teachers do not like that, did not ever want to do it. Behind closed doors, they did their own thing. Now they're not going to be able to get away with it because they're going to be required, due to the standards that are being set and the accountability, the whole what's going on in Washington now with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act is nothing but brainwashing. And people, you hear standards and accountability and flexibility, all of this. Basically, the goal has nothing to do with academics. It has to do with training little, as you said, little workers, little worker bees, to have the right attitudes and values towards internationalism, giving up our sovereignty, the needs of the group versus the individual. You know, they have all the group grades now, and
Did they actually
cooperative
ever stop
learning.
talking about being a change agent, how to stop teaching people about basic civics, what the Constitution says, limitation of government? I mean, did they get into
No,
that?
I don't recall that, but I do know that I've seen I attend a lot of in-service things too, you know. So I've seen and heard, you know, how are we going to get away from, and that's in the book. Actually, there's a very interesting article in the New York Times in the early 70s about getting rid of the teaching of American history.
You're kidding.
Oh, no, not early 70s. New York Times article in the book. And it says that, yes, and we're not going to talk about George Washington anymore. We're going to focus on the world, because you have to get these world-minded students, or else they're going to rebel. If you want to put the Americans under a global management system or whatever it is, be very careful you don't teach them the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Don't let them have any history, because they are going to object when this system is taken away from them. But they won't now. You could take the Constitution away from the American people right now, and they wouldn't care, because they don't even know what it is. They don't know what it is.
Well, they don't know what it is.
It protects them. It protects their rights. The reading problem. If you're so dumbed down, if you can't read, I've always said you can't defend yourself.
That's right.
You can't do anything. I mean, you are really at a tremendous loss. You are totally handicapped, worse than losing both legs if you can't read. They can take you right through the schools, 12 years without reading, just total brainwashing through visual, a lot of visual aids now with technology.
So they're trying to make people weaker readers?
Oh, of course. Yes, that's why they had the whole language for so long.
Which is I always thought was very dumb.
Yeah, it is pretty dumb. I think that some teachers, a really good teacher with whole language and an understanding of the traditional phonics, I don't mean direct instruction, which is Skinner, the Skinner phonics, but a good teacher who understood phonics well could use a whole language program quite well, because there are some things about whole language I like, where the children are really immersed in a lot of good literature. Sometimes it's not so good, and it depends on the teacher. But anyway, the dumbing down was absolutely deliberate, and you don't even have to go through all of the documents that I have in my book, but just ask yourself, why is it that last week the Senate voted in the House on the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and it comes to something like, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's I think it's $100 billion. It's $100 billion a year. And we have children who can't. We're at the bottom of the list internationally, academically, and we're spending $100 billion. We will be, because it's reauthorized for 7 years. It's not quite that.